banking system to which you deposited these bonds to, you are worth that same amount of money you've put on the paper there. And that will be stayed against your name until you default in that payment, and such funds can be recovered. And if you're intelligent, you can have that check in a different bank. So let's assume you have your mortgage on the NatWest Bank. You could have another account on HSBC, and where you could issue a check. Assuming, for instance, your mortgage outstanding is well over £150,000, you could issue a check of £500,000 and send it to the bank to which you get your mortgage, and tell the bank to keep it on your file as a bond, such that if you ever go into a default of your mortgage payment, you use that bond to compensate for the default. And you could have a substantial amount of money to compensate what may be considered a default on the mortgage payment. In the mind of the banking system, you are worth what you've written on paper because you've created credit. And that will be stayed on your file, like you have in the criminal justice system. The property will be lost, all because we have been deliberately misled into believing that it was ours and we failed to take necessary steps to protect it. Namely, being sure property is in our true lawful names and discharging the alleged debt which they have made up as a means to confiscate our assets. The entire process. Now, when that happens, the bank's never going to tell you that your home may be repossessed if you don't keep up your payment, because you've already written a bond well over the amount they're asking you to pay. Now, the entire process is their means to take what we think is ours for their ultimate purpose of control. Just because you got that property doesn't mean the bank can come after that property when they find it necessary to do so. This does not need to happen. It will be via our neglect and man's incompetence for this to happen. Not an act of God. All they want is to have their debts discharged. Only we can do this for them, as long as we pay for what we believe to be our debts with debt instruments, their debts, because only more massive. Already we are saying it is impossible to pay back. Well, of course, it is impossible to pay because there is nothing with which to pay. It is, however, so simple to discharge. It can be done in an instant. You might well ask, well, if they want us to discharge their debt for them, why don't they just say so and we'll be only too happy to comply? Then we'll all be happy. Why the subterfuge? You forget that what they want the debt for the sole purpose of confiscating our property for, their ultimate control. The fact that we think we labor for it is more of the same propaganda. All property will revert back to a belligerent foreign corporation, the IMF. And where we will be, after all, we lose everything, and our houses and cars, where we will be. Dare I say detention camps? Where else would we have to go? Properties are being foreclosed by the thousands every day. And after the pandemic, the Covid-19, you may begin to see how properties are being forced to foreclose by the thousands every day. Do you still believe it is because we live beyond our means. We never had to pay for any of those things we believe we bought anyway. They were already ours. Many of us are filling and finding the correct papers to ensure that what we believe we paid for does indeed remain ours. This must be done. If you have not actively recorded your property, including your children and grandchildren, in your true title name, you will lose your property and your descendants. It is just a question of time. None of this has to occur. We have two ways out, and I suggest you begin now to implement them. The first is to establish your property as your own, and the second, which is vastly more important, is to practice remembering that none of these matters. What does matter is our peace of mind. We must do that which will grant us the greatest peace and the greatest joy. We must forgive those for what we think they did to us, including the international banksters. We must grant our souls some freedom by knowing that house or no house, we can live in joy. Most of the people on the planet live without the houses like what we have. We've seen other countries in the emerging economies. I'm not saying they live in joy, yet I contend they might be able to live in joy if they weren't incessantly reminded of how we live. They actually think we are happier than them because of the things we think we own. They, like the rest of us, believe they are not good enough. It only manifests in different manner based upon their individual experiences. The holographic mind, very briefly, all the energy that ever was, is, or can be, is already here. Energy is all there is. Energy is neither created nor destroyed. Our thoughts are energy. Nothing else is energy, since everything occurs in our minds. What sometimes happens is that through increased information, unbeknownst to our conscious mind, we do change our thoughts, which fleetingly affords us to change our circumstances, which then change our perceptions, which then change our beliefs, which then begins to create more workable thoughts, which create circumstances more to our liking. What works best is if we can release the old programming, because then we are clear to create what we want. We need to stop the fear-based thinking, which is so ingrained in us that we consider it natural. It is not. Our circumstances follow our thoughts. Nothing is created without thoughts. Thoughts is the only source of energy. Energy is what it takes to create, and energy is all there is. There is no need to have the project fear manifest in you. You shouldn't be afraid of the country, afraid of the system, afraid of the employment system, afraid of trying to rise through the ranks, afraid of the old establishment. There is no need to fear. You have a right to live, a right to be here. Not to be afraid of morning, afraid of afternoon, afraid of evening, anxious. Since thoughts are creative